I think I covered them all. Ask questions.
I think you got
Be
it.
interesting. Share your cameras. Weigh in. Let's have fun. All right. So we are going to be looking at two resources today. One is a slide deck. Stephanie referenced that you'll be getting a copy of this slide deck tomorrow. I think of it as a user guide for the other resource, and I'll just go ahead and share my screen. The other resource that we are going to be referencing today is our federal funds landing page. So let me show you where that is. So we start here. Okay, so if you go to our very cleverly named website, equalisgroup.org, across the top navigation here, you see federal funding eligibility. And this is a resource that we built out. We built it out with two different audiences in mind. One is all of you, our awarded suppliers, supplier partners, whatever terminology we want to use. There's a whole chunk of resources in here for you, for your sales teams, for your marketing teams, for your leadership, that we've put in here. The other audience for this landing page is the customers, the end customers. And so there's resources, and I'm going to show you. There are customer-facing resources that are here on this page. We've made it really easy for folks to find. And so as you look at this page, what you'll see is when it comes to the COVID relief funding, there were three separate pieces of legislation that were passed between March of 2020. The very first one was the CARES Act, if you all remember the CARES Act. Then later that year, there was the continuing resolution of the CRRSA. And then in March of 2021, we had the American Rescue Plan Act. Some people refer to it as ARP. Some people refer to it as ARPA, whatever. So those are the three pieces of legislation. If you're ever wide awake and you need to go to sleep, click on any of these links. You'll get 1,000+ pages at each one, 1,000 pages of absolute legislative gobbledygook. But if you really need to get yourself to go to sleep, this is a good starting point. What this page covers, and it's what our agenda is for today, what this page covers is all of these questions that people brought up and we kept hearing over time. And so I'm going to go through each one of these and show you the resources we developed. And then just so you know, in this green table, I did not know this probably 9 months ago. This is called an accordion table. So an accordion table, because if you click on the little plus sign, it spreads out, and that's where all the content is. So everything that you need to know about federal funds and the tools and the resources, again, the COVID relief money, and the tools and the resources that we've built for you and we've built for your customers to make it easy for them to spend their COVID relief money with your organizations through our master agreement without having to go to bid and stay legal. I know that's a lot. There's a lot of elements to that sentence. Everything that they need is right in here in this green table. So that's the primary resource. And then this slide deck is for all of our supplier partners, for all of you. This is your reference tool to help you navigate in case you need to go back and check something and say, okay, what's this for? This is your user guide, your Sherpa, if you will, for how to navigate that landing page. As you can see, our agenda today follows exactly what we have on that landing page. And our goal is very simple, that by the end of this conversation, you know what to say and what to do when it comes to talking with a customer about buying your products and services using federal funds without having to go to bid. That's our goal. You know what to say and you know what to do.
Trying to get those new.
Don't know. Is that somebody talking to us or somebody having a sidebar? I don't know. All right, for those of you who may be newer to Equalis or need a refresher, I just want you to be aware that we developed what we call our Winning Together video series for suppliers. There are 13 short videos in here. If you like my personality and my sense of humor, you're going to maybe like these videos because they're Josh Fitzgerald, our EVP of sales, and me, and we're just talking to each other about each of these different topics. The first 5 or 6 of them are great for people to get brushed up on Equalis and the role that we play in public sector procurement, making it easy for you to sell and making it easy for your customers to buy. The last several of these videos are in direct response to questions that we hear a lot from our supplier partners, from your sales reps, and from the field. And so we've addressed it. These are not videos for customers. These are videos, quite frankly, that are designed to help your teams make money for your company and for themselves using the Equalis Group Master Agreement that your company has with Equalis Group. So this is a sales-oriented series of videos. If you watch them beginning to end, you can do it over a bite to eat. It takes less than 30 minutes to watch all 30 of these. And I will tell you, or all 13 of these. And I will tell you, a lot of our supplier partners are loading these videos for their sales organizations in whatever their intranet system or knowledge management system is in their companies, and making it part of onboarding for new reps and trainings and so on and so forth. So I want you to be aware of those. If you need a brush up on Equalis and how it works, how we work with you, it's all right here. And so here's the punchline. And my goal is in about 23 minutes, give or take, what is on this slide is going to make sense to you. So you're talking to a customer and they say to you that they're looking to use federal funds to buy from you, buy some of your products and services. What we have right up here in quotes, this is what we want you to be able to say, and your sales teams to be able to say to that customer. Our Equalis contract was awarded after a procurement process that followed the requirements of uniform guidance. And then you're going to give 3 examples. For example, it was a competitive solicitation. There was a price analysis performed, and my company, you can fill in the name of your company here. It's, you know, it's not like I state my name, my company has completed the federal funds certification form. Now, do you have to know, do your sales reps have to know what all those things are? No. If they say this to a customer, that, and with confidence, we want to do it with confidence. If they say this to a customer, it sounds like you know what you're talking about, and that's what matters. And then you're going to provide these resources right here. I'm going to show you these resources today. And then if there's any other questions, any other discussion that comes up with your customer, you are going to call your Equalis sales rep and say, hey, Keith or Nancy or whomever else, can you get on the phone with this customer and help answer any questions they might have? So 23 minutes from now, the goal is that this makes complete and total sense. So I mentioned our sales team. We've got a couple folks here today. We've got 6 folks across the country. We added 3 more this year. We've got more coming next year and years beyond. But here are your folks. So depending upon where you are in the country, I don't care if we're talking about a state agency, a local government, a K-12, a higher ed, doesn't matter. We divide our team up geographically. We've got a couple folks here. Keith, would you mind saying hello and giving folks a 10, 20-second intro on you?
Good afternoon, everybody. Keith McDevitt. I'm the area vice president. I'm in the gray, yellow, and green areas. I have 2 gentlemen that work with me that are fantastic. Kirk McGonagall's up in Concord, New Hampshire, and Zach Heidman is up in Minnesota. Looking forward to answering any questions you have and helping you navigate our federal funds offering.
Great. And I think I saw Nancy. Nancy, are you still here?
I am still here.
Introduce yourself, please.
I happily will. So I am from the other half of the country. I work with Derek Anderson, who's the area vice president. He and my teammates cover across the South and the West. I am all things green. And like Keith, really looking forward to partnering, helping you and your teams with any of this.
Okay. Anybody else in our sales team on the call? I can't see. There's so many people on this call. I can't see everybody.
I don't think so, Akers.
Okay, we probably should have, Stephanie, I probably should have introduced ourselves. So my name is David Akers. I run what we call marketing supplier engagement here at Equalis Group. What that means is after our crack procurement team has gone through the industry leading procurement and contracting process that Equalis delivers to all of our public agency members across the country, Stephanie and I are involved in bringing those contracts to market, developing all the sales tools and training materials and so on for your customers, for you and your sales teams. Stephanie, right now you're working on how many different marketing campaigns with our suppliers?
6.
6 right now, and we've done several already. Corey, we did something with you guys earlier this year down in Florida with Hurricane Ian and a couple of our other partners. So that's what Stephanie and I and the rest of our team do. So probably ought to mention that. So now we're going to dig into the federal funds. And the first thing is the total dollar value that went to that state, local, and education market, or the SLED market, between those 3 pieces of legislation, $635.1 billion. And you can see that there are 6 primary, well, really 3, there were 6 funds, 3 primary funds. And we're going to focus on these 3 up here because they're $615 billion. And not to suggest that $20 billion is insignificant, but $615 billion is more significant. And so that's where we're going to focus. So what you'll see right here, you see this link. Again, this is a guide that's going to help you navigate that federal fund landing page on our site. And so if we click on this link, what's going to happen is we're going to go back to our landing page. It's going to, the link takes you to automatically scroll down into the green table into that very first section right here. And so as these pieces of legislation were being passed, the first question that we kept being asked by suppliers and by members was, well, who got how much money? That's the first question we got asked. And so you'll see over here, any one of these links that is denoted with a double asterisk, that is a link that you can click on to find out who got how much money of all these different types of entities. And so these are your state agencies and your local governments, your counties, your municipalities and the like. These are your K-12 schools down here. These are your higher ed folks. And so this is where you can find how much money. So I'm going to pick on Danita. Danita, do me a favor, come off of mute. Tell us if you'd like to look at K-12, higher ed, or state and local.
I will do just which one is like the regular school district one?
That would be this one right here, ESSER.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
one I would do.
So let's take a look at ESSER. So if we click on this link right here, you've got, and so we'll just go ahead and click on it. Thank you, Danita, for playing along. We appreciate you. There's some wonderful parting gifts for you at the end of the show today. What we have is a link. This is a map of the United States. And so Kelly Schwab, pick a state, any state. Was that Texas? I'm reading lips. It looked like Texas. All right. So if we mouse over Texas. Texas. Okay. What you're going to see is there were three, and I didn't mention this. There were three different pieces. Well, I did mention three different pieces of legislation. When it comes to K-12 and higher ed, each one of those pieces of legislation put money into the K-12 and higher ed funds. So that's why you're going to see ESSER 1. That was from the first piece of legislation. I'm betting you can follow along. ESSER 2 is from the second piece of legislation, and ESSER 3 is from the third piece. What you're going to see is that statewide, K-12s in Texas got about $1.3 billion in ESSER 1 funds, almost 4 times that much in ESSER 2 funds, and almost 12 times the original amount, 11 times in ESSER 3 funds. So the funds got bigger with each succeeding piece of legislation. The amount that was allocated increased for K-12 and for higher ed. Now, if we, Danita, left click on the state of Texas, what happens is you get a breakdown alphabetically of how much money. Now, they've basically gone through the ESSER 2 funds, so all we're seeing right now is ESSER 3. But you can see how much money each one of these different K-12 districts, and by the way, they're not all public schools. They're not all ISDs in Texas. There's charter schools as well and community schools. And you can get a sense of exactly how much money they got. So who we got? Aldine got $236 million. It's an amazing amount of money. So again, that link, all these links are denoted by the double asterisks in the first section of this green table. I'm going to pause, see if there's any questions or comments. Again, people.
I have a question about that because what I've gotten is pushback now. Because I have been sharing that. I've been snipping doing a snippet of their district so they know how much they've gotten. And then they have either pushed back or the superintendent has pushed back and said they've spent all their money. And I was just wondering if you have any, but I haven't told them specifically about phase 3. So
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on that?
I do. Thank you for asking that question. Danita, more parting gifts for Danita, everybody. She's on fire today. So right below that ESSER allocations by school, we have dollars spent to date. So if we click on that link, and you'll notice that this is a U.S. Department of Education site. And what you can do in here is you can go into a particular state, and you can say that you want to focus on ESSER funds. And you can see across the state how much of the money has been spent. And then down in here, you can actually search for an individual school district. Now, I will tell you that this site, the data lags by about 60 days. So you'll see that this is what had been spent through the end of August and what was still available through the end of September. So we're a couple months behind. We aren't. The Department of Education is a couple months behind. So we have this for K-12, the Department of Education does, and the Department of Education also has it for higher ed. We have not found, if anybody knows of one, please let us know. we have not found a good source for tracking the state and local funds spent. How did he get to that information? Great question. So let's go back to the very first section of our green table. So remember, we're on our federal funding landing page right here. We're scrolling down to the green table, which when you first get there is going to look like that. And then we're just clicking this plus sign. And we were looking at K-12. So this is your state and local. This is your K-12 called ESSER. And right here, ESSER funds spent to date. That's how I got to the page I just showed you. So again, if you click on that link, you're going to get it's not quite a map, normal map, but you pick the state. We were talking about Texas. You pick the state, and then you pick the funds. So we were just talking about ESSER, which is K-12. Here's your higher ed, same information for higher ed. But if we click on the ESSER funds, then what you can do is this is statewide, the numbers for ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. Remember, roughly, if a school district got $1 here, they probably got about $4 there, and they probably got about $11 here. So the magnitude just kept going up. Okay.
David, one of those questions was asked by Maria with Helm. Maria, yeah. I know you had there was some anomalies that you noticed that we talked about last week, and I've been traveling, but now might be the time to if it's still in question to ask David. Maria,
yeah, I had noticed that one of our links took us to a document that stated that the ESSER 3 fund had to be spent or obligated in 2023. However, the Equalis website does say 2024. I don't know where I got that. It was in one of the links, or the hyperlinks in some of the documents that we had. So I didn't know if that was old information.
Yes. Yeah, that was old information. So, and you know what? That is what I call in my world a wonderful segue, which I know is actually pronounced segue. Don't need to tell me. So this is our first question. The second question, give me 1 second to get back to that, Maria. The answer is it's 2024. So the first question is how much money? Who got how much money? The second question we were hearing a lot was, well, what can you spend the money on? And there was, frankly, that wasn't actually fully spelled out until well after a year after the last piece of it, well, almost a year after the third piece of legislation. So here's what Congress did. What Congress did, and it's quite unusual if you're familiar with the federal government, they were not specific. They were very broad-based. And so Congress said, hey, here's some big categories. And as long as what you're spending your money on, state and local, K-12, higher ed, somehow fits in these categories, you're good. So then what happened is the federal agencies actually administering the funds wrote something called guidance that said, okay, we're going to give you some examples of what MRO supplies are, or planning and operations, and so on. So there is not a list of some number of, whatever, 117,482 specific SKUs that were identified. Yep, if the item is on this list of 117,000, you can buy it. If it's not, you can't. It's very flexible and broad. And we've certainly, Keith, I know you've dealt with this. We have certainly had members saying, I want to buy this very specific HVAC unit to go on our roof. Where does it say that I can buy this unit? And the answer is it doesn't. What the agencies did is within those categories defined by Congress, the agencies came up with examples of authorized expenditures. Kind of, if you remember the old Pringles commercials, to give you a feeling for the flavor of a Pringle, to give you a feeling for the flavor of what you can spend your money on. So there's a lot of flexibility in here. Thank you, by the way, DC. I appreciate that smile. So what did we do? In the second section of our green table, which you can access by clicking that little link that says here. So we're in the second section of the green table. What we did is we put together, somebody on my team who left, by the way. I think after he read hundreds of thousands of pages of stuff, he decided, I'm done. He quit. He took another job. So not my fault, his fault, whatever. So what we did is for state and local, K-12 and higher ed, we put together just a very simple document. And this is not only for you, it's for your customers. And what it does, again, I'm using state and local here. Here are the source documents. They're linked right here. But what we did is we said, okay, here are those big categories that Congress came up with that were written into the bills that created these funds. Here are some of the examples of authorized expenditures that the government agency, federal agency that is administering these funds, in this case, the Department of the Treasury for the state and local funds, here are some of the types of examples that they gave. And so as you look through here, the idea is if what you're trying to sell and what your customer wants to buy, you can kind of make the argument that it fits in here somewhere, you're going to be okay. More importantly, they're going to be okay when they get audited. That's their biggest concern, that they don't improperly spend the money and then have to pay it back. Now, what I particularly love, does anybody on the call today sell something that doesn't fit under the overarching umbrella of general government administration, staff, and administrative facilities? Anybody on this call sell something that doesn't fit under that? Anybody? DC, you do? What? You're killing me. What do you sell that doesn't fit? What do you sell that doesn't fit under that? Cybersecurity. Yeah, but that I think that could fall under government administration. You got to protect your IT infrastructure. That's part of administration.
Okay. I thought you just needed someone to respond, so I wanted to help you out.
Well, I appreciate that, and you did actually. You did help me out because you gave me an opportunity to say, "See, look how we can get it to fit."
We make it fit anywhere, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's the point. So guys, these documents are really helpful because it gives you the ability to say, "Oh yeah, here's where we fit. See, look here." And so we have one of those for the state and local market. We have one for that's this guy, K-12 right here, and higher ed right there. Right? So we get asked, who got how much money? Then we get asked, well, what can we spend it on? And then back to Maria's question, we get asked, well, what are the deadlines? And I'm going to quickly show you that in our user guide, we have a summary of the deadlines, which are exactly what we have listed in the third section of the green table. So Maria, to your question, originally, ESSER 1, the date was September 30th of last year. And this was January 28th of 2022. So each of these numbers were -1, if you will, until about May. And in May, the Department of Education came out and said, we're going to push the deadlines back by a year. And so that's why if you're looking at something that's older, you might see that the reference is to 1 year earlier. The other thing I want to note, guys, so keep in mind, Congress passed these bills with the idea, I know that this may be hard to remember, that we need to stimulate the economy. And so they put these deadlines in to say, hey, it's hundreds of billions of dollars, and we want to make sure that the folks receiving these dollars spend the monies pretty quickly. By the way, I'm just going to show you what's on the landing page at the same time. We want these agencies to spend the money pretty quickly to stimulate the economy. With 9% inflation, you might argue that they overshot the mark, but that's a whole different economic question. So again, for your customers, here's the information about by when they have to have the money obligated and spent. So let me just quickly talk about what does obligated mean. Obligated means either spent or under contract or subject to a PO. So in the case of the K-12 funds, got to be obligated by the end of September and spent within 120 days of that. That's where you get the January 28th date the following year. So what does this mean? Remember, $1 here was $4 here, was $11 here. The vast majority, 15/16 of the money is still out there that can still be spent and obligated in K-12. Now, some of it has been spent already, but there's a lot of money out there. And the biggest amount of the pie, 2/3 of the money, doesn't have to be under obligation until almost 2 years from now. So there's a window, but there's going to be an end to that window unless the federal government extends the deadlines again. You've got a little bit more time with your state and local funds. So obligated by the end of 2024, spent by the end of 2026. What does that mean? It means you could sign a contract with a customer today, a multi-year contract, that as long as that contract is over or the agency stops spending their SLFRF dollars, by the end of December of 2026, you're good. Well, that gives you 23, 24, 25, 26. So you could enter into a 4-year agreement. If your organization has multi-year agreements, you could enter into a 4-year agreement with a state government or a local government that's spending their COVID relief money with you, as long as they're done spending it by the end of December of 2026. So there's still a huge selling window, is the point that I'm making. A huge selling window. Okay, so who got how much money, and what can we spend it on, and by when do we have to spend it? And then, and this didn't even get nailed down until April of this year, the question became, what are the rules that folks have to follow when it comes to spending money? And so there's this thing called uniform guidance, and that's federal speak. What it is, it used to be, there's a lot of federal agencies, Department of Transportation and, Housing and Urban Development and the EPA and all these different agencies that give money away. And they all used to have different rules about how the recipients of their funds could spend the money. And so about 10, 11 years ago, I'd buy them a bottle of bourbon if I knew who it was. Someone in the federal government said, we ought to standardize the rules around spending federal dollars because it's just too confusing for people to follow. And so now you wouldn't call, in the normal world, we might call that standard rules. Well, standard is uniform in federal speak, and rules is guidance. So the term uniform guidance, all it means is standard rules. And basically in uniform guidance, there's rules about how you procure the contract that you're spending the money through, and there's rules about how you actually spend the money if you're a receiving agency that got these federal dollars. Now, the rules about how you spend the money, that's going to be up to the school district. They got to follow that, right? They're the ones who are spending the money, or the city or the state agency or whatever. On the procurement side, what's interesting is you don't have to procure the contract yourself. The rules about the procurement of a contract apply to whatever contract you're going to be buying through. And as long as, whether it's you, if it's a state term contract, that the state who procured the contract, that they followed the rules. If it's a cooperative, like yours, us, that the cooperative followed those rules that are in uniform guidance. So as long as the rules were followed, and there's certain documentation that the agency has to maintain, whether they did the procurement themselves, they're using a state term contract, or they're using a cooperative contract. There's rules that they have to be followed, and the agencies actually have to have supporting documentation. So that's basically how it worked. And so, okay, so now we know what the rules are, but then the question became, well, okay, can we use a state term contract? Can we use a cooperative contract? Are we allowed to do that? And the good news is, in that standard rule set, uniform guidance, the answer is yes. In fact, if you look at what's bolded right here, this is pulled straight out of uniform guidance. The non-federal, I'm going to translate federalese here. The non-federal entity, that's the agency that received the money, the school district, the state government, the local government, are actually encouraged to buy through state term contracts or
drink water.
Whoever was yelling out water, if you don't mind going on mute, that'd be great. Although I agree with the sentiment, drink lots of water. That's very important. Our membership agreement for agencies to join Equalis Group is an intergovernmental agreement. So there you go, Sal. Thank you for coming back. So the point is that not only are these agencies allowed to spend money through state term or cooperative contracts, they're encouraged to do so by the document that governs how they spend their money. That is good news for all of us, because it is not true that every cooperative contract followed uniform guidance. But it is true that your cooperative contract with the Equalis Group followed uniform guidance. It is not true that every state term contract was procured in accordance with the uniform guidance. I will tell you, I'm in Ohio. Stephanie, Keith, and I were all in Ohio. There's not a single contract that the state of Ohio has and makes available through their state term contracts that any of the 4,000 political subdivisions in Ohio can buy through, because not a single Ohio state term contract followed the requirements of uniform guidance. If you're in Arizona, where Nancy lives, some do, some don't. You got to try and figure it out. Some do and some don't. And I will tell you that not every cooperative out there followed uniform guidance either. Indeed, and here's a little trick you guys ought to be aware of. You may have existing contracts with customers that they procured and they awarded to you. But if they didn't follow uniform guidance in procuring that contract and awarding it to you, they are actually not allowed to spend federal dollars with you through that existing contract and be in compliance. They will actually be at risk of failing their audit. Dallas ISD, kind of a sizable school district. There you go. I used kind of, but I used it properly, not as a filler. Kind of a big deal. They have $700 some million that they got in ESSER funds. And as of when they started getting those dollars, they didn't have a single existing contract they had procured that was procured in accordance with the uniform guidance. Could not spend a penny with any of their existing suppliers. So there are rules, and I'm telling you, you may not worry about the rules because, hey, we got the deal, right? Fantastic. Your customers care because they're the ones that get audited and they're the ones that have to pay the money back. And in Ohio, it's not that the agency pays the money back. It's actually the procurement person out of their pocket who pays the money back. You think they care about being compliant? You're damn skippy. They care. So we put all this together. If we go back over to our landing page, Stephanie and I were working a deal, about a $700,000 lighting deal. Because you can see, by the way, how putting up new lighting at a minor league baseball stadium relates to COVID, right? Everybody can follow that logic. So what we did is we kept getting these questions from a county prosecutor who was new to federal funds and didn't know how all this stuff works. And you can imagine he was a little concerned, like a lot concerned about doing everything right. And so what we did, frankly, I got so tired of going back and forth in email with this guy because surprise, surprise, he wouldn't let us pick up the phone and talk to him. We put together these expenditure compliance guides. And so here's an example of one of them. This is a customer-facing document. Our team, Nancy and Keith and everybody else, they use these documents with customers every day. And so what we did is we put in here basically an executive summary. This is for your executive team. This is for the legislative body, right? In this case, the city council or the county commission. And it's basically an executive summary. And what it says is, hey, here's the key question. Can we buy through publicly procured, competitively solicited Equalis Group master agreements? Yes, right there, boom. Okay, and then here's a bit of an explanation. So that's for your top folks that don't want to get in the weeds, but they've all got lawyers. And what do lawyers want to do? They want to look at source text citations. They want to come to their own conclusion, right? So what we did is we said, okay, look, follow the bouncing ball. Here's the guidance. You got all the links here. We've pulled out of the guidance exactly what it says, direct, verbatim quotes, but follow the bouncing ball and come to your own conclusion because your client or your employer or whatever, they've hired you to say, is this okay or not? So here, take a look, come to your own conclusion. So about a week before Christmas, some of you have heard this, about a week before Christmas, we fired this document off to the county prosecutor and said, here. About a week after Christmas, by the way, this is after a month and a half of back and forth via email. Sent him this document because I was frustrated and got it off to him a week before Christmas. We went and celebrated Christmas with our families. It was great. It was wonderful. New Year's, fantastic. A little bit of snow on the ground. It was nice. We come back a week after New Year's. The deal's approved by the county prosecutor. And it was this document that closed the deal. These are very powerful tools. And they are readily available for you and for your customers. And they're right on our website. These ones are right down here in where the plus sign is, your expenditure compliance guides. They're actually so important that we also put them at the top right of the page. They're right there. These documents close deals. That's what you need to know. Okay, so we've gone through a bunch of examples here. And so then if we pull it all together, this is your guide to navigate stuff. What are the tools that we have for you? If you click on this link, that's going to take you to the federal funding landing page where we just looked at that green table over and over again. If you click on this link, same page, but you'll see the arrow. Hey, those expenditure compliance guides that I just showed you to close that $700,000 deal without a single direct conversation with the lawyer, they're right here at the top right of the page. Customers want to know what they can spend their money on. Go down to the eligible uses of these funds, which is in the green table in the second section. If you click on this link, it will actually take you to that page with that section of the table open. Okay, so we've got all these resources. And I mentioned earlier in this discussion that the customer has to maintain documentation related to the procurement of the contract through which they're spending money. So where are they going to find it? They're going to find it on your landing page on our website. Everything that they need for their audit is right there. So if we clicked here, that's going to take us to equalisgroup.org, and it's taking us to the contract section. And so since Chris, you're front and center for me, if I go to DLT, I go to the DLT landing page, all of our landing pages are structured the exact same way. So it's very consistent. All the documentation your customers need is right there. That's what they need. Because those are the documents that prove that our lead agencies followed all of those specific steps that are required under uniform guidance. We have better documentation than 99.9% of your customers do of their own procurement process. So it's all right here. So let's bring it back together. Remember I said there was going to be a punchline. Hopefully this makes sense, and then we're going to open up to questions. Our Equalis contract was awarded after a procurement process that followed the requirements of uniform guidance. For example, it was a competitive solicitation. There was a price analysis. We completed the federal fund certification form. And then all the resources you can give to your customer are right here. And then what you're going to do is, if you're out west, you're going to call Nancy. If you're in Ohio and surrounding states, you're going to call Keith. Up in the Northeast, you're going to call Kirk. All right, I see a hand raised. Meredith Campbell, talk to me. What do you got?
Yes, hi, David. And I apologize, I'm not on camera, but I'm in my car driving back from a call with the school district out of state.
Okay.
And that lends me to my question. So I met with this district this morning. We sell technology solutions, which that falls in these categories in a lot of ways. And one of the questions that I asked him was, what is your process and your procedure? Can you make this purchasing decision, or does it have to go to RFP because it's over X amount of dollars? And he said, well, if you are covered by a contract with the state of North Carolina, it doesn't have to go to RFP. If we are partners with Equalis, does that cover every state, or how does that work?
The short answer is we cover every state with very few additional steps required. Additional steps are required in, correct me guys if I get this wrong, Alabama, Mississippi. What am I missing? All right. So what I'm pulling up, Meredith, and you can't see this, so just pretend. This is a visualization exercise, okay?
Yes,
Stephanie,
sir.
can you make sure that we send this to Meredith Campbell? This is a document we call a legal authority document for the state of North Carolina. And what we've done in these documents, state by state, and I'm working on finishing the last of them. We got 17 of them done. We have all the underlying information. We're just producing all these documents. What we've done is we have cited in here the very specific statutes in North Carolina, which talk about what North Carolina agencies, K-12s, higher ed, whatever, state and local governments, what they're able to do and how they can buy through cooperative agreements. And basically, if you're a school district is probably, I'd have to look, probably a political subdivision under North Carolina law. And we've pulled out the specific statutes and North Carolina statutes that authorize K-12s and higher ed and state governments and local governments to buy through cooperative contracts. So that's a long way of saying, Meredith, we check that box. And this is what you would do. You would get on the phone with Josh Harrelson on our team. Have you ever met Josh?
I have not.
Okay, you
But
need
I
to
look
meet Josh.
forward to it. Yes.
Yeah, so you're going to get on the phone with Josh Harrelson. You're going to tell him about the conversation you just had and whatever else you know about this opportunity. Maybe he even knows these folks. I don't know. And then what you guys are going to do is you're going to come up with a game plan for you to introduce Josh, if he doesn't already know these folks, to whoever you just talked to. And then Josh is going to have the conversation with that person to say, hey, here's where we fit under state statutes. And so you can use our contracts. That's exactly what working with Josh or Nancy or Keith will do.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Chris Klein, are you raising your hand? You actually raised your real hand. That was
It's
fascinating.
my real hand, yeah.
What do you got for us?
Hey, I just gotta ask, do you have these documents available, just out of curiosity?
No. Why would we give you why would we give you resources that you could use with your customers? That
Of
would be
course you have them
stupid.
available. The question is, where can I find them?
So right now you find them by asking me, but I can tell you that within the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to have, well, according to our project plan, in the next 4 to 6 weeks, the ones that we have completely published and done will be online on our website. And for the ones that we don't have completely published, what we will be doing is we will have the state statutes there and visible. But ultimately, we're going to create these documents because they look nice and they're really easy to email to folks, and then they can circulate around within an organization. So your contacts can send them on to others. So we got we got most of the big states right now, and then we're working on converting the other 33 into this format. So the good news is I'm the guy that gets to do that, and it doesn't take any time at all, to be sure. So, you know, I'll sleep before the end of the year if I get them all done.
Yeah, no kidding. You're saving me the trouble. So.
That's right. Other questions, comments? Meredith, do you have another one, or is your hand still up because you're driving and you're being careful? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
driving, being careful. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. All right, it's 2:45. I said that we would have class dismissed by 2:45, so class is dismissed. However, I'm going to stay on the line. If any of you have other questions or comments, I am happy to answer those for the next several minutes. And we want to make sure that you all get what you need. The key points: you have one sentence to say with 3 examples. You've got resources for you or your sales team to share with the customers. And then most importantly, you've got Derek, you've got Nancy, you've got Josh Harrelson, you've got Keith, you've got Kirk, and you've got Zach. And they are here to answer exactly what Meredith brought up. That's why they're here. Use them to help you close business because they're incentivized just like you are. And the more they help you close business, the more money they take home. And that makes everybody happy because your company gets revenue, you get commissions, they get commissions. Yay, life is good. All right, so I'm going to stick around. Anybody's got to go. Thank you so much for being with us today. If we don't talk to you, have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas if that's your bag. Happy Kwanzaa if that one's yours. If you're, what was the one in, Festivus. If you're Festivus, happy Festivus. Happy Hanukkah. If you're agnostic, enjoy whatever. I don't know what to say to an agnostic or to an atheist, but God love you and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe friend, are we going to see you in a couple of weeks?
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. Benita Jones, I don't know how we're going to get you your take-home prizes, but again, thank you for weighing in earlier. At the very least, you have our eternal gratitude for
Okay, well, I appreciate all you guys' help.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you got it. Thanks, Jerry. Noel, question, comment, smart remark.
Yeah, I just had a question. So I know that childcare facilities have kind of fallen in this middle ground. They're not public agencies, but they've been receiving a lot of help from state and federal funding. Is that an area that you've seen some of these funds available to?
Yeah, so in a couple of different ways. Some agencies, because remember I said the ESSER funds, the K-12 funds, didn't only go to public K-12 schools. So you may have a child care agency that was directly included in a distribution of ESSER funds.
Like a private agency? Or private?
Probably not private. So here's the other way it works. A lot of the states, and it varies state by state, Noel, but a lot of the states are taking a portion of the money that they received and they are redistributing it out.
Got it. Okay.
And they're putting programs together. Now, here's the key. The end recipient still has to follow uniform guidance. They could be a private company, they could be a nonprofit organization, but those rules are tied to the dollars. They're not just tied to the direct recipient, they're actually tied to whoever's spending the money. Okay. And so, and I know you were mentioning for-profit, I can tell you in the nonprofit world, we have a whole slew of members that are nonprofits that receive some dollars that are federal. And even though they're nonprofits, and even though they aren't subject to all the statutory requirements that you have in all 50 states about competitive solicitations and all that, generally, they are subject to those requirements when they're spending their federal dollars. And so that's one of the things that would bring them to a group like Equalis to join, because they can access contracts that meet those requirements.
Okay.
Does that help, Noel?
Yeah, and so I think probably I just need to reach out to the private company and find out if they're, what kinds of dollars they're getting, federal dollars they might be getting.
Yeah.
And
so they
it's a nationwide company, so it would be interesting to see if it, obviously it'd be at the state level. Every one of those would be at the state level.
Probably. So
Yeah.
if they are, so the question I would ask them, Noel, is, hey, are you guys applying anywhere in the country? Have you applied for COVID relief funds? Because then not everybody remembers, ESSER and ARPA and, all CARES and whatever. COVID relief people will generally remember. Have you guys applied anywhere, either at the state level or at the county level, potentially even the large municipal level, for any of those COVID relief funds? And if the answer is yes, then get on the phone with someone on our sales team and talk it through, or reach out to me, as the case may be. Talk it through, and we can come up with a game plan for how to have a conversation with them. Because again, they're not necessarily going to care until they realize, oh crap, we might be subject to audit.
Right.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah, and are the state agencies that are distributing these funds, are they having that conversation that they have to be? Yeah, who knows? Right.
No,
okay.
I don't know.
Okay. I'll explore that a little bit more and let you know if I have any questions.
Fantastic. Noel, thanks for being with us today. I appreciate you chiming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Great information. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Question for you. Do you have something similar supporting Canadian market?
Similar on the federal fund side, or similar
Yes.
on the state legal authority? No, not in the Canadian market at this point. No.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. But we love our friends up north. They're only 45 miles that way. So all right, so how about this? Any smart remark? Did I bore you guys to tears? Because remember, I was coming in after an hour of just pure boredom, and my goal was to keep you guys engaged and interested.
Nah, David, you're always a good talker. I enjoy your conversation.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? Dave, John, Stephen, Fanit, Carl? Carl, I just talked to you last week, and I think you just talked to Nancy yesterday.
That's right.
Yeah, I do have a quick question. This is Steve in Tampa.
Yeah.
So, I guess once we convince the customer of the sell price and the project, and they're looking to move forward, are there limitations on, I've heard there's 25% for materials, all the Equalis contract can be. Are there restrictions on the limit of how much you can mark up subcontractors or material, or?
So, which contract are we talking about? Which company?
I'm with MC Squared.
MC Squared. Okay.
It's a prison.
Okay. There are very few limitations in our contracts, if any. There are very few. The only thing I'm thinking about in terms of a 25% thing is that in some of our supplier contracts, if the agency is looking to buy something that's not on contract, but the contract allows the vendor to go out and source in the open market, that there's a cap on how much the markup can be. That's Steve, the only 25% limit that I can think of. Nancy, can you think of anything else?
All right. Well, again, it's just what I thought I had heard from some previous conversations.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to suggest, Steve. You and I can get in touch, or you said you were talking to a group down in Florida. Is that right?
Well, I haven't reached out to anybody locally. No.
Okay.
We've just recently presented the project.
Okay.
To the owner.
Okay.
We expect to be having conversations within the next week, 2 weeks.
Okay, so it sounds like, Stephanie, maybe we want to attach V cards for our sales team to the email tomorrow. Steve, your guy on our team is Josh Harrelson.
Right.
If we're down in the Southeast, if we're in Florida, yeah. and he is your resource. You guys get on the horn and have a conversation, brief him on what you're doing. If he knows anything about the account, he'll tell you about it. And then if you know some of those questions that you've heard that have come up, maybe he can track down the answers, or you know, help give you some questions you could ask the customer to, if it's a customer-driven requirement, to make sure we understand exactly what is the customer is saying applies. Because I know this will shock you. Sometimes customers say things apply to them that don't actually apply to them. Sometimes they say things apply to them that actually do apply to them. And unfortunately, in some of these things, there's a lot of misinformation. I'm not going to go so far as to call it fake news, or any kind of Russian election thing. I'm just going to say that there's a lot of times there's confusing guidance that comes out, and part of what we do is try and get down to the root of it, and then say, okay, here's what the actual rules are. And if you want to validate that, go here. That's part of what we do to help you all with those customers and with those confusions that come up.
Well, good. Thank you. I'll be sure to reach out to Joel here soon.
Josh Harrelson.
Josh, I'm sorry.
Josh Harrelson.
I got a question. Is Georgia one of the states that's covered, or is it one of the ones that's a work in progress? Because I was talking about a deal in Georgia that had to go through a Georgia state contract, so I wasn't able to participate after that. But
Georgia, I have completed, ready to go. And look, for all of you, if there's any state that's not completed, I still have the underlying statutes. So I have all the statutes, and so we can very quickly address one-off customer problems. It won't be quite as pretty, but it will be very effective. So, but Georgia is covered, Dave.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You got it.
Gotta jump, David. I'll see you tomorrow. Catch you later.
Hey, take care, Chris. Thanks. Everybody,
Appreciate it.
We really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Have a great holiday season.
Thank you. Same to y'all.
Yeah, take care. You're looking very cheery, Queen Elizabeth.
Well, you know, not everybody can live in a snow